I am really excited today because I'm going to speak with someone who I've been friends with online for a while now, Skylar Liberty Rose. And Skylar, can you please remind me how we met? Because for me, if somebody asked me, I would say we met on Instagram, but you said we met on Clubhouse.
I think we did actually. Yeah, I think it was Clubhouse. And I think I then started following you on Instagram. So, but then once I saw your Instagram, I was like, oh, that's like, you just had a vibe that I was instantly kind of attracted to. So, and I don't use Clubhouse anymore. So it was Instagram pretty much.
And why don't you tell us why you were on Clubhouse, what offerings you give to women, and where can they find you? And then we'll go from there and just chat like two good friends.
Absolutely. So I'm a writer and a coach. So I provide sanctuary and support for women in midlife. Essentially, I help women, especially introvert women, I help them to embrace their 40s, their 50s with joy and confidence. And one of the things that I absolutely know to be true is that we need community. I mean, we need community at any stage in our lives, but particularly in midlife when there's so much changing. It's just like every day it's a different landscape in your body. Like it's lots of different dynamics change within our relationships. So yeah, I knew that I wanted to start connecting with other women and really just fostering that sense of community. And at the time, Clubhouse felt like that was a really good platform for me to be on. And it was, but I think I just reached a point where I was like, okay, I'm not somebody that can like listen to people and do something else at the same time. I kind of have to give it everything because I just otherwise my attention just goes off in all these different places. So I found that I'm just like kind of sitting there listening to conversations or joining in conversations and not getting the work that I needed to get done. So Instagram is like a just a more natural place for me to be where I can kind of, hop on and off and focus as and when I need to.
So, if somebody were to hire your services, what would you be? Imagine that I say, Skylar, I need your help. I'm, going, I guess, through a rough time right now, which is actually true. I think life is one rough time after another, as you well know as well. What would you offer me? What would you propose?
The first thing that I tend to offer people is the membership club. So I run a membership club called You to Bloom, which is all about nurturing you through midlife. And it's a real, oh God, it's just a beautiful community space where we meet twice a month. We have Zoom calls like this. Doesn't feel like a Zoom call because I know after the pandemic, everyone was like, I don't want
Right.
to get involved in any more digital virtual stuff. But it's just a really, really beautiful space where women in midlife are given the tools. You're given what you need for you to bloom. We have guest experts come in. So we have like an informal call once a month where we just gather together in a circle. And there's usually a theme, a topic. I always start with one of my meditations. And then the other call, the second call that we do that month, we have a guest expert come in and join us. And they impart their wisdom, their tools, their tips, techniques, things that will help you to basically embrace this stage of life and practical stuff that helps you to really like find your way through this kind of chapter that you've never experienced before, whether you're in your 40s, 50s, or beyond, in a way where you feel like you're actually proactive in addressing the things that need to be addressed in your life, whether that's finances, a retirement plan, whether it is nutrition, because your hormones are shifting around, your body has different needs than it did in your 20s. We've had people come in and talk about creativity. It's really things that will, yes, offer some practical help, but also inspire you and not just kind of have you feel like, oh my God, I just hit 45 or 55 or 65 and now it's all doom and gloom and downhill. So that's the membership club, because I believe so strongly in community, is a great space to start. I also have a flagship program, Visible, which is how I first kind of started working in this field. That's a self-paced program, and it really helps women to to understand what is actually behind these feelings of invisibility as some of us experience as we start to move through the aging process. And I basically lift the lid on all the things that kind of support that. And we go into invisible woman syndrome and why that's a thing and what we can do about it. And then I have an audio course, Spark, which is really about helping you to get your spark back, to reconnect with your spark, to get rid of all the noise, the layers, the things that we accumulate, right, as we reach this stage in our lives where it could have been, if you're a mother especially, and I'm not, but I know that for many mums, they have been busy taking care of their kids for so many years that they've often forgotten what it is that makes them come alive, what it is that brings them joy. So that's an audio course that is really designed to help you reconnect with that, to reconnect with your spark.
That's fabulous. I also know that you have, and you just mentioned it, the Insight Timer meditations.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, because I started doing audio and I just really enjoyed it. And I had a client that I've worked with for years. She said to me, "Why are you not doing audio? Like, I just want to listen to you. Like, your voice is really soothing." And I'm like, "Well, actually, I enjoy doing this." So I started putting my meditations on Insight Timer, and I do a few talks over there as well. But really, there are a variety of things, but it's all about empowerment, essentially. To, I know it's a bit of an overused word, but it's about women being able to listen to talks or meditations that help them feel grounded, that help them feel centered. I talk about aging specifically in some of them, and others are just, I last week I put out a 5 minute meditation that's all about affirming your worth, and there's affirmations that you can say as part of that. And I think I'm going to do more of the 5 minute ones, because when I first started, I was doing like 20, 25 minutes. And I'm like, wait a minute, the women that I work with generally don't have like a ton of time because they're leading busy lives, and, they're often kind of bordering on overwhelm. But I know they got 5 minutes. They got 5 minutes, even if they're brushing their teeth in the morning. You don't necessarily even have to sit there and be present. I encourage that you do if you can. Um, but yeah, I love what I do on Insight Timer, and I love the community that's there, because it just kind of gives me a bit of a sense of peace to know there's so many people that tune into the app and that are doing the same as me, trying to manage overwhelm and get support and ease in their life rather than feel burned out and despondent. So it's a great community feel there too.
So I'm a sucker for a British accent. I attended a British school in Spain when I was growing up, so I could listen to you forever. It's to
Oh.
me, anything said in a British accent sounds smarter.
Well, that's hilarious, and I can assure you, very much not true.
But
But I'll take it.
it's no, to me it's very attractive. So what made you start all this? Because before we started the recording, I was telling you that I didn't even feel that I was in midlife. I think I'm starting to feel it now that I'm about to turn 60, imagine. But in my 40s, I was not aware that I was in midlife at all. Maybe because I was dealing with some life struggles. I was recently divorced, I had no money, I was on food stamps, I had my two little kids, and I had to just move forward.
Mm.
I don't know if that's why. But yeah, until I turned 50 and I launched my platform Be 50 and all the associated social media, I don't think I felt that I was in midlife. So what prompted you to start addressing all these things at a younger age? Younger age than me, anyway.
Well, I'm totally with you on the midlife thing, and it's something I say now, but initially, like, that wasn't a phrase or a word that I ever associated
Hmm.
myself with. Um, but two things happened pretty much around the same time. Well, actually, there was one thing that started it before it kind of officially started, and that was that I just felt a little bit disillusioned with social media. I historically I was helping women find their courage through creativity, and I had a couple of programs and I was doing stuff around that. And I loved it. It was, it was work that I really enjoyed, but I just started feeling this sense of like a disconnect to what I was doing and my place in the world and on social media. So I decided to take a step back and figure it out, because I just felt like there was all this noise and I couldn't work out what I needed to work out. So I took about a 6 month break from social media in 2019, and I got quiet. I just really tried to tune out of all of the noise, like I said. And the one thing that kept coming up for me was tell the truth, tell the
Oh,
truth. And I'd be sitting there kind of not like deep in meditation, but, just trying to have a moment of like figuring my life out. And I was like, tell the truth. I've always done that. I've always been very truthful and, stood up for what I believed in, but I was like, what am I supposed to do with that? Tell the truth. And what that actually prompted was a year-long documentary diary, which I called A Woman in the World, that I started a new Instagram handle for. And honestly, Lorraine, it had like 200, like maybe followers. I think it never really got beyond that. But every day I would share a picture of my life and I'd share a caption. So it was really, a diary of my life in 2020. Of course, when I started it in 2020, I had no idea the world was about to change forever. And I really wanted to just tell the truth, literally, about my life, because I was thinking, well, if there's me feeling disconnected from social media, other women my age are probably feeling the same way. So maybe if one other person connects with this, then, it will be helpful. And it was helpful for me because I felt like I was processing and I was creating, and both of those things were really important. So I started just, sharing my life. That diary ended up being featured in the National Women's History Museum. So even though I had barely any followers, it's still actually, it's now kind of somewhere where other women can actually access it and see it. And when that year finished, I kind of was like, well, what now? What do I do now? And just about that time, I had an experience of going to my doctor and telling him that I was just noticing things in my body were feeling off. There were a couple of things that were happening. I think at the time I was peeing more at night. My periods were being erratic. I had vaginal dryness. There were just a number of things. I was like, insomnia. And I said to him, I think it could be perimenopause. And he was like, oh, no, you're too young for that. Just dismissed it.
how
I
old were
was
you at the time?
44 at the time. I'm almost 49 now. And I remember thinking, well, I know that's not true. I'd done a little bit of research, not much, but I'd done enough to know that wasn't true.
Hmm.
And then not long after that, I was told by a female doctor, well, the information's out there. You just have to look for it. Like, the support about perimenopause is out there, but you do have to look for it. And I was like, okay, well, thanks. But also, do we say that to pregnant women? Do we send them off to
Yeah.
just seek out the information, or do we actually help them and guide them through it? So there was that. And then there was a moment of, oh, it's so strange to think about now, but I was sitting at my in my bedroom, about to do my makeup or something. I had my vanity mirror right there, and I caught sight of myself at a really, like, what would be called an unflattering angle. And I could see the skin under my neck, my chin, just like literally sagging, and it was all like wrinkled. And I just hadn't really noticed it before that moment. And it was like the light, the way that the mirror was angled. I just saw it and I was like, oh my God, I I can't have anybody seeing me from this
Mm-hmm.
angle. I don't even want to see myself from this angle. And I just remember thinking, okay, but make a note of how you're sitting right now, because be sure that you don't do that when you meet anyone in real life, like, because they can't see this. And that went on for a few minutes in my head, and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, I'm not doing that. I have not, gone through some of the things I've gone through in this life just to sit here and be ashamed of my own reflection. Like, I just really am not going to do that. And how exhausting, right? To have to make a note of the angle that you're sitting at so that nobody else sees that about you. And as soon as the thought came into my head, and it really did like flood through my body, this like moment of horror, then I was like, no, that's just got to go. So as soon as it came, I was like, not doing that. But those two things, that the documentary diary being the first thing, and then the doctor's visit, combined with how my reaction to myself about visibly aging, I was like, look, here's your work. This is your work right now. And so I did a bit of a pivot, and I changed from helping women find their courage through creativity to empowering women to embrace aging. And I haven't really looked back since I started it. And I didn't know exactly what form that was going to take. I didn't know how the vehicle, if you like, that I would use to connect with other women. But I knew that it would be about courage, and I knew that it would be about truth. And those things have been and remain at the core of my work.
That's fabulous. Interestingly, I had what I call my oh crap moment with aging at not in my 40s, but it happened at 50. Honestly, I felt on top of the world because I was marrying the love of my life after being together for a few years. My career was soaring. I felt physically, emotionally, and mentally great, and then of course a bunch of things happened in my 50s that were going to shake that a number of times, and because that's life. But I was hired by ARP to go to Washington and do a few videos. I'm a certified yoga teacher, so I did a few videos for them in a studio, and I was feeling pretty good about it all. And anyway, so when I saw the videos edited and online, I almost died because it was like close-ups of my wrinkled arms and my neck, the things I don't usually see, right? Or my
Right.
legs, this and that. And I was like, oh my goodness, everybody's going to see this. And then it did feel weird. And I did have that, oh crap, oh crap. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, everybody sees me like this all the time. It's just
Right.
me who doesn't realize it. So it's okay. And my other oh crap moment was, maybe, I forget if it was before or after, but you know that I make a living online and with my likeness and all this. And I have a husband who is a professional photographer. He was a journalist before, but now he takes my picture. Poor guy. As you know, that he doesn't always enjoy it because I'm so bossy. But so we were at the beach and it was no special cameras, nothing. And I said, can you just snap a few pictures with my iPhone? And he did. And when I saw the pictures at home, I was like, oh my goodness, this is terrible. The same thing that you said. It's like nobody can see this wrinkled
Right.
belly. Nobody can see my neck, which, now I don't give a crap. I just show my neck however it is. But yeah, it was hard to see those pictures. And then I made the decision to share them on my Instagram profile with close-ups and everything of all, because I started thinking, oh my gosh, if I go to like I was going to many conferences, so I thought if we're at a pool or at a beach, people are going to see this and they're going to realize I'm not perfect. But I had an eating disorder when I was very, very young. Well, not very, very young. Actually, it lasted 20 years, which is awful. But then I said, I did not spend 20 years of my youth and early adulthood consumed by the eating disorder and depression and anxiety just to start all over again, worrying about how I look when I'm aging. And I'm a very physical person. I'm also, very into meditation and all this, but the physicality of it has always been important for me for my mental health. But now I'm at that point where, and I'm very vocal about it, how I do beauty treatments for my face. I use Sculptra, which promotes collagen, and it makes me happy, and I'm a happy camper doing it. But then if I go like this, people are going to see that my hands are full of veins and spots, and my neck doesn't is hanging, and my arms are starting to go to pot. And it doesn't matter how much I exercise. I should be in the gym all day, and I don't have that kind of time, and I don't want to. And so I do have to admit that sometimes I'm like, oh, what the hell is that? But then I will still wear the bikini, and I will still wear the no sleeves, and so it's when I talk about how positive it is to age, the thing is, I mean, the positive part of it is that we're alive, because I've
Right.
lost friends to cancer, and they will never be my age. And my late friend Belinda said, all I want to do is age, and she will never see her children grow up, and they're the same age as mine. So what I wanted to say about that is that I feel that if you had that oh crap moment, and I did, and I still do once in a while,
Yeah.
other people are having it as well.
Yeah.
And you're very vocal about that. And so tell me a little bit more about how you show up on social media. You're meeting with Paulina Peretskova, the model. Maybe younger people don't know who she is, but we know who she is. And she was an icon when I was young. And to me, she continues to be. But, and she gets a lot of flack for showing up online as a beautiful person, and people think that she's trying to call attention. But you met her in person, you read her book, I read her book. What would you say about that?
I mean, I'm a big fan. I was following her for a while before we connected. And yeah, she does. I mean, she shares a lot about aging, and I think she might have the odd treatment done to her. Again, she's pretty much an open book, same as you, same as me, sharing her experience as a woman in this world and what that looks like to be a woman aging in this world. And yes, by societal standards, she is deemed to be very beautiful. She made a living, a long career out of modeling, and um, she looks the way that she looks. But there's this strange kind of I don't know, like pushback that she experiences where people are like, well, you've got no right to talk about anything because you're not the average person. And it's like, well, but she still is a person, right? She still is a woman, and this is her experience. And I really believe we have to make room, and not even make room. I believe that there is room for all of our experiences. And, the great thing about social media is that if you don't feel that you can relate to what somebody is saying, what they're posting, you are at liberty to not follow that page and not follow that person. You get to just choose. And isn't that a wonderful, amazing thing? So I do find it interesting. I think that a lot of the criticism, she gets a lot of support, but she does get her fair share of criticism. And I think that that really is projection. And I think that happens a lot of the time when people are trolling on social media. I recently did a video. I share a lot of videos about, or recently started doing more video actually on Instagram specifically, addressing things that pop into my head about aging, things that I'm dealing with that I know other people are likely dealing with, and doing a little bit of myth busting and hopefully encouraging people to feel good at the stage of life that they're at. Um, and one of these videos was shared by the Pro Age Woman, who I wrote an article for in January on their Facebook page. And I use Facebook, but I don't use it like I use Instagram. I kind of only share from Instagram to Facebook. So it's not a platform that I particularly enjoy using at all. And I wasn't even checking to see kind of the responses of this video, but I happened to look, and oh my goodness, there were like, I don't even want to know how many comments telling me to sort out my hair, sort out my eyebrows, sort out like, they just went in there.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, my eyebrows. I was like, okay, that's a new one. And I think it's because when I do video,
Goodness.
I'm probably doing it right now. I don't even care. Where I'm just like kind of like raising my eyebrows. So some people are like, oh, says the woman who's had Botox. And I was like,
Oh my
wow.
goodness.
So they really went in. Interestingly and thankfully, it honestly didn't bother me at all. Not personally. It just I couldn't take it seriously because I'm like, I'm not going to listen to John in Kansas like ripping me to shreds. Like, I don't even know who he is. Like, I don't care. So, and some of it was coming from women, some of it was coming from men,
I
but all
hear
of
you.
it, I was like, that's a projection, that's a projection, that's a projection. And you know, this is my face. I don't know. What do you want me to do about it? This is the face that I was given. I do the best with it that I can, and it's not going to be to everyone's liking. But I, again, just like you said, I haven't got through divorce, pancreatitis, debt, a brain tumor, an eating disorder, just so that I can have a random stranger or multiple random strangers on the internet try to make me feel ashamed of myself. Like, no. However, I do not like, it doesn't affect me personally, but I do not like how we have a culture where feel as though they can behave in such a bad way with such ease. I don't appreciate that at all. And I think that we need to, as a society, really push back when we see that. I think that there should be things in place to protect people online because, you know, it's not okay. You don't get to just vomit abuse on somebody's page about their appearance or anything else. So if that was my experience as somebody that doesn't have 1 million+ followers, I'm sure that Paulina Poroskova has, you know, had to kind of come to her own way of handling those kind of like trolls, that negativity. But when I met her at her book launch, and she was just so warm and genuine. And we spoke on a live that she did. And I really feel that her her experience isn't going to be one that necessarily we can all relate to. But a lot of what she shares, I can relate to, and I don't look anything like her. But I think there's a lot more that bonds us together as women and as women in midlife or of a certain age, or however you want to
Yeah,
refer
of course.
to this chapter. Um, I think that we have more in common than not, and it's going to take all of us. You know, we can't just have one spokesperson for a whole movement. It's with matters of feminism. There's not one person that can just say like, "Here it is. Here's the feminist movement. This is what it's all about." No, it has to be intersectional. We're going to need everybody's voice, everyone's contribution. And I think as long as we're respectful and mindful that we're not the authority on any one experience other than our own, then why not make room for one another? Why not celebrate one another's voices, one another's experiences, and learn? You know, I'm sure, Lorraine, you shared things that I haven't personally experienced, but I love reading about your experience because you always share from such an authentic place, a vulnerable place, and I learned something from all of your posts. And I feel a sense of solidarity with you, even if that's not, again, my personal experience. So I don't know why we only want to follow people that are saying exactly what we want to hear or that we already know. Like, no, let's mix it up. Let's like follow different people that we can learn from. And yeah, so I think there's space for all of us for sure.
No, I feel the same way. And just so you can get a little laugh about that, I've been compared to Steve Tyler from Aerosmith on Facebook. They told me that my big mouth and my hair looks like Steve
Wow.
Tyler. I've been told that I've had a facelift. I've been told that I look my age and older. I've been told that I'm a kept woman and that my husband is going to leave me for a younger person, and so many other things. And usually this does not happen on my Instagram. This happens like when I used to write for the Huffington Post. I got a
Yes.
lot of trolls over there. When for example, I did something for Now This, and I looked at the comments, and it was like one after another of, oh, this privileged lady, she's gone under the knife, she's done this, which if I had, I would have no problem sharing.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the fact was like, why? And then, every time I share about whatever, just like almost anything, there are people who take it really well, and there are people who are like, oh no, you're in shape because you're privileged and because you're like this, and wait till you get to my age and it's going to be terrible. I've been hearing that since I was 20, and
Right.
I'm 60 almost, and people still tell me that. They're like, wait till you get to my age. I'm like, why? I don't tell that to younger people. I don't take the fear of aging in younger people lightly. There are a lot of people, especially on YouTube, that follow me who are even in their teens. And they tell me
Yeah.
that they appreciate my videos that I do for young people, not even women who are over 40 or 50. That's who I thought I was talking to. But then when I started getting comments of young people in their teens, like younger than my own children, I was like, wow, this is serious. We need to start modeling that, you can
Yes.
kick and scream, and I can be like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I'm turning 60, or I don't want to turn 60. And what is that going to change? Nothing. And I can kick and scream all my way to the grave, or I can find ways to have those oh shit moments and then realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a human experience. It is okay for me to feel like that. It's normal. And then I have to find coping mechanisms to get out of that. So yeah, you're not the only one who gets the funny thing is, interestingly, if I were 20, or even when I was 30 and I published my first book in Spain, back then there was no internet, but I had a P.O. box where people could write to me, and it was about my eating disorder. So I got a lot of snail mail from other women who were going through it, but I also got some things that, were disturbing, like, oh, my parents say that you're just doing this for the money and whatever, and if you don't answer, I'll kill myself, and things like
Oh
that
gosh.
became so heavy for me that I was like, wow, I'm not ready to handle this. And I was already 30, so I can't imagine being 20 or even 30, and being on social media and receiving all that, those awful comments that do come on some
Yeah.
platforms. Now I can laugh just like you, because I'm like, who is this person saying this? Like some person in their basement, or and even when I disagree with someone online, I do exactly what you said. I don't announce myself like I'm not going to follow you anymore. No, who cares? I'll move on. I don't have the time or energy for that. And I'm also
Yeah.
becoming more open, as to who I follow, and it's not only about aging, about anything. It could even be political views, because if I start shutting off people who don't think like myself, then, and I realize this now, this has been an evolution. Like 7 years ago, I
Mm.
was blocking people right and left. Now I'm not. Now I'm like, wait a minute, there is a space for people who think differently. Of
Yeah.
course, I have my boundaries as well.
Yeah.
But within reason, there is room for all of us to learn from one another.
Mm.
If you're comfortable speaking about it, what could you tell us about your experience with, people could look at you and say, look at you, she's so happy, she has everything all together, she's happily married, does what she loves. But you went through a traumatic experience in the last year with the tumor, and you did share how hard it was some days. Like you were happy, but then you're like, but this is my reality. I'm losing my hair. I'm not happy. I'm learning to walk. And how was that
Mm.
experience for you? And how are you feeling now?
Oh, I it was wild. It was such a wild experience, and I still am kind of in it. And so
Mhm.
I'm just kind of like processing as I'm in it, or trying to process as I'm in it. Um, I I had no idea. In fact, you were one of the first people that actually, I'll never forget your message, because I was sharing on social media at the time that I was having episodes of vertigo, didn't know what was going on. I was vomiting. That was basically how I first started to realize something was wrong. And I remember we were on message on Instagram, and I said something to you, and you were like, "Oh my God!" And you mentioned somebody else that had just been diagnosed with a brain tumor, and I was like, oh, "Okay, that's interesting." I was like, "I don't have a brain tumor," and you weren't saying that that's what I had, but it was kind of, I mean, as it turned out, that's exactly what I did have. Um, so I did have to go through some challenging months where I was having balance issues, but mostly it was the vomiting. I was vomiting multiple times a day when it got to its like worst part in January last year. And I just want to mention that because one of the things that came out of this experience has been the importance of advocating for
Mhm.
myself, especially as a woman who's aging, because I don't want to get to my 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or beyond and be ignored by a medical professional. So it's really important that we start to use our voices at any age, whether you're in your teens, your 20s, whenever. Like, it's really important that you advocate for yourself, especially when it comes to medical matters. We know our own bodies, and yes, sometimes we need help from doctors or other, whether it's nutritionists, whoever it is. But we have to be able to trust our own experience. I feel strongly about that. And so the short version is that I was misdiagnosed a number of times, but it was finally an MRI that showed this mass on my brain. And it was, I had an MRI on a Wednesday afternoon. Thursday morning, they called me and said, "You have a mass on your brain." By Friday, I was meeting with a neurosurgeon. And by Sunday, I was in the hospital getting prepped for surgery the following week. So it happened very, very quickly, because if I didn't have surgery, that was the only option. Um, I could eventually like end up in a coma if I just ignored it. So um, yeah, so the recovery from that has given me a renewed appreciation for my body. You don't have to have a brain tumor to appreciate your body, but if you've ever gone through anything, and Lorraine, I know you've had your challenges with your shoulder and other injuries that, have created discomfort for you, some pain, some restriction, that it does give you a big appreciation for your body, for all the years that it has worked for you. And I think there's a softening that happens
Mm-hmm.
in, maybe, I don't know, midlife. That's a very broad time of our lives, but I don't talk to my body in a mean way anymore. And I am still sometimes vomiting. I have nausea daily. And I just don't want to say to my body, like, "What's wrong with you? Why do you have to be like this?" Like, I did that in the disordered eating years. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that anymore. There's much more compassion now. There's much more, how can I honor my needs? How can I meet myself, excuse me, in this moment? So it's been humbling. It's been very humbling. And I don't want to talk about it like every day to like the world at large, because I don't want to keep myself mentally and physically in
Mm-hmm.
that space of struggle. But I also don't want to say, "I survived a brain tumor. Look at me now." And like, here's how you can get through your struggle because I
Right.
did. Like, no, like, screw all that. Um, but I do like to use it as an invitation to other people to just practice, some self-compassion, some kindness, some self-love to your body, whatever you're dealing with. And, if you're in a body, you're dealing with something. So um, yeah, and also just to say that, when you said at the beginning, like, I seem quite happy on social media and I have a relationship I'm happy in, those things are absolutely true. I also live with anxiety. I was seeing a therapist last year for anxiety, and I will do again. um, I don't have depression, but I do have days where I just feel a bit like, and I always want to be honest about that, because I don't ever want anyone to put me on a pedestal and see me on social media and be like, "Oh my God, I want what she's got." Like, please, my relationship is not perfect. And, Leon and I have a great communication, but God, we've been married 10 years. We just celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary, which is
Congrats.
amazing. But, like, who gets to 10 years? Who gets to a year without having, some kind of struggle? It's like, I just, I like to tell the truth, as I think I've probably been pretty clear about. But I like that in other people as well, because I can relate to it. Um, so I guess I'm feeling very, very grateful that I've made it through the last year. Very grateful that I'm in a relationship that helps support me through this year and, the years before. And I'm excited about what's to come. But I will always be honest about the struggle. I won't allow myself to wallow in that space of struggle, or not for too long, but I'm not going to pretend that it's not there. We're real people, real women leading real lives in a real world. So these are not failings or flaws. And I always want other people to know that, because I don't want them to look at their own lives and think that they're lacking somehow because, everyone else has got it figured out and it's just them that can't get a grip on their life. That's not true.
Definitely. I can relate to a lot of that. 5 years ago, I narrowly escaped colon cancer, and it was kind
Mm.
of the same thing, that I was misdiagnosed and someone said I had IBS, and that was it. and I ended up in the ER, and then actually going to a specialist and begging for a colonoscopy and endoscopy. And I got them, and the doctor said to me, that was my second one, and the doctor, when I woke up, he said, "Thank goodness we did the colonoscopy, or in a few months we would have been having a very different conversation." And I was like, "Oh, well, what do you know?" And then he wanted me to have a colon resection, and I was ready for that. It completely jarred me because I've never had big surgeries. And I went to a specialist in Western Florida, and I went for the surgery. And the specialist said to me, "Wait a minute, why are you saying you have to have surgery?" I said, "I don't know. This doctor said that's why I'm here." And he said, "Well, we are specialists, and we might be able to do this all through more colonoscopies." And in fact, I've had six already, six colonoscopies. I'm up for my
Mhm.
seventh. I think it's next year. And they took care of the whole thing with colonoscopies. And
Wow.
I did not go through surgery. So I am very vocal. My dad has
Gosh,
had colon
yeah.
cancer last year. I didn't even know that I had a family history of that. If he had had his colonoscopy, he wouldn't have had colon cancer. And he had the
Wow.
surgery that I was supposed to have, the colon resection, and then he had to have the bag. I forget what it's called, but and then they
Yeah.
reversed it. But anyway, it was very scary, and that was the year that I lost my best friend to colon cancer, and there I was with almost colon cancer as well. So that was humbling. And then this year it was this injury that you mentioned about my shoulder, and it was more the pain, the chronic pain that was so hard to deal with, and the ego also. I had to deal with a lot of
Mhm.
ego because then I was like, why do I want to do these extreme poses? Why do I want to do handstands? Is it because I want to, or is it because I want to show off? And so there was a lot of that I've had to come to terms with. And I messed up my own recovery, probably because I was doing things too fast, too soon. Went through three different doctors. Finally, the last one got me on the road to recovery. Now I can, lift my arms without pain. And right now I'm
So
like,
good.
I'm not going to try to do a handstand right now. It's fine.
Yeah.
I can do my daily life. I don't have pain in bed. So that was that, getting to that point, and for someone who's very type A and has had issues with body image and wanting to do more and be better and all that, it's been interesting. And also to tell
Mhm.
myself, who are you to complain about this when there are people who have no legs or no arms, and
Mhm.
so and also a lot of the things, like I was reading, like we've gone through some parenting challenges in these past few years that are pretty heavy, but I'm not at liberty to discuss publicly because they're not only my story. But I was reading how the shoulders also have a lot to do with when you feel the pressure of the world on you. And so it's been a spiritual, physical,
Yeah.
mental journey that has also humbled me tremendously. So I feel that we have that in common. I might not always be able to, like, if it's about me, I don't care. I'll talk about anything.
Yeah.
My mental health, my depression, my pills that I take, I don't care. It's fine. But when I always say that my story ends when someone else's starts. So
Yeah.
even when dealing with our kids, if it's not something that, they would like me to discuss, or even about my ex-husband, or I've never, dissed him publicly. And it's a different thing if you and I are talking as friends. Not everything goes. But publicly is a different issue. But I try to do what you're saying, which is, and it's exactly what you're saying, that our truths or our feelings might be different, and the way we approach life might be different, or our choices about how to deal with certain things might be
Mhm.
different, or not. But the solidarity and the compassion, I think that you don't need to have gone through something to 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 feel like compassion, or I see you. I can be a witness to your pain or what you're going through. I don't feel sorry for you. I am just there, and even grateful for you allowing me to witness that, because it
Mhm.
also takes, it's I think we're uncomfortable, at least I used to be, with uncomfortable feelings, with the
Yeah.
big feelings, and now it's taken me a lifetime to just sit with them. And just yesterday in the morning, I was having someone was interviewing me, and I was crying. I was a crying mess in the morning, but I don't cancel things for that, because I know that that's just how life is. You can be happy and sad and everything in one day, sometimes in one
Yeah.
hour.
Yep. Yes. All the things. Yeah, it's a mixed bag. And I love that you do share so openly, and I really respect the boundary that you have as well for yourself about like somebody else's story starting.
Hmm.
But these are the things, when I put a post on Instagram today, and in the caption I was saying I've never been able to relate to women who have these so-called perfect lives and
Yeah.
these pristine, appearances. I always feel like there's a barrier between me and them because
Hmm.
I can't connect to them, because I can't see my reality reflected
Hmm.
in them. And it reminds me, I don't know if you ever used to watch Friends, but
Yeah.
there was an
Yeah.
episode of Friends with Monica who, was like very particular about how she liked things to be, and her apartment was just like, immaculate. And then there's one episode where Chandler finds the closet where she just rams all her crap into.
That's me.
And I'm like, right. But when I see these women with their like so-called perfect lives, I'm like, well, where's your closet full of crap? Because I know you got one. You can't just be sailing through life. None of us are. So I always appreciate it when I'm able to connect with other women who are like, yeah, this is me, because our experiences again don't have to be identical. But I'm just like, seeing you show up in the world as yourself gives me permission to show up as myself. And I always really appreciate that.
Also, I think that if you're always presenting a curated, and this has taken me some time, version of your life, like, for example, during the pandemic is when I started renting fabulous clothes that I could walk in and just, pretend to have a fabulous life because it made me feel better. And I was trying to find joy in a moment that was not joyful in general for a lot of us. But then I also try very hard to show up in the morning with my glasses and no makeup and my coffee in my hand. I can barely speak and
Mm.
my bed isn't made and I work in my room and the house is a mess. And when people tell me, "Oh, I can't be an influencer because my house is not perfect," I'm like, "Oh my God, well, mine is definitely not perfect." And I make a living doing that. And I've shown people in the past hacks of, like our two bathrooms suck. Like they're awful. And when a brand was like, "Well, we want shots in the bathroom or bathroomy style," then I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to make our bedroom white. That's it. So that we can have this illusion of some kind of, white place that we have." And then I have props that I just bring out for certain photo shoots and stuff like that to create that illusion. But it's
Yeah.
not, and that's just because of an aesthetic. But people know
Yeah.
that my bathroom sucks. And
Well,
that
that's
right
the thing.
now I just posted where I'm doing this, which is all messed up, and it's just the way it is, It's you learn to. I mean, it's so. I find that it probably is. I don't know because I don't do it, but it has to be so tiring to put up a front
Uh-huh.
that, if you meet me in person, you find me down the street or whatever, I'm going to be the same person that you see online. And it's not like, "Oh, this is me doing what for what?" What is it? And I'm so
Yeah.
glad that I don't care. I truly, truly don't care. Like I don't
Yeah.
live for a brand. I don't care I don't even know sometimes what car I'm driving. And, it's that kind of thing. It doesn't take up, and I'm not dissing on people who do. It's a different lifestyle. It's just not the way I'm wired.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exhausting. I mean, I just don't ever want to put myself on a pedestal or anyone else, because I think that it's the maintenance of that image. It's like, and I used to do that back in the day. I used to feel like I couldn't show like myself without makeup. I couldn't show my hair being a mess. And honestly, the weight that was lifted when I started to do that as part of the work I'm doing now, I was like, this is great. Like there's never, you know, a, like a moment where I'm like, oh my God, I would never let anyone see that. I mean, sure, I'm not gonna like bring people into the bath with me, but
Right, right.
I I just I just don't want to have that pressure on myself where I feel as though the world has an expectation of me that I have to continually meet, because also that's then I'm not really connecting with people and they're not connecting with me, because there's again that barrier, that figment of their imagination that I'm carefully curating behind the scenes, because I think that's what they want to see. And I just really appreciate it when women can show up as themselves. And I know that's a layered thing. Like not everyone feels safe to do that. And as we were speaking about the trolls, I mean, I had a bunch of people, I sent out my newsletter, and a bunch of people said to me, like, I know you said you were okay, but are you really okay? Because this is like awful. And I was like, thank you for asking, but I can promise you I really, really am. But it reminded me not everyone would be, not everyone is comfortable to share their lives so openly and be potentially, receive that kind of like backlash. So it's not necessarily an easy thing for everybody, but I think the more that you can tell the truth about your life and show up as truthfully and authentically as possible, honestly, I think the better you're going to feel, because you don't have to wear that mask. That's what's exhausting. That's what's draining.
I think so. And also the realization that we're not alone in our troubles usually. There's always one or a
Yes.
billion people who are going through sometimes exactly what we're going through. And I have people who kind of suspect what's going on in my life from things I say. And they're like, oh, I think, we're going through something like this with our kid and whatever. And so we get into these conversations. And I love that about social media. Like I've had my Instagram account for 12 years.
Wow.
And yeah, and I've made friends throughout the world that when my kid, my eldest, who's accident prone and is going to be the death of me, um, I've been able to wire money to someone, or wire PayPal money to someone to get her at the police station because all her stuff was stolen in Barcelona. Then she was going to Morocco, and I'm like, who do I know in Morocco? And there was this mom who lives in Morocco, so if anything were to happen to her, she could go. And
Oh,
people have
wow.
taken her in California when she was commuting to her ambulance job. And, so I have this army of moms, and not just moms, just women out there. Some of them don't have kids that have watched out for my kids. And we had a hurricane here in Florida in September of last year. And I was going to Spain and I wanted to make sure my other kid was okay. And I reached out to a mom blogger and she picked up my kid and took the kid to their house. And it was, so for me, that's what I focus on the connections, as
Yeah.
I was saying. And I can't wait to hug you in
Yeah.
person because I know it's going to happen. I don't know when, but
Yes.
I know it's going to happen. So.
Oh my goodness. Do you have any plans to come back to New York soon? I know, were you here
Not
last year or was
right
it the year
now.
before?
I was there last year, but it was like a lightning trip and I posted it that I wasn't going to see anyone. Also because it was COVID and still it
Yeah.
was a pandemic and you never know how people are comfortable or not
Yeah.
meeting in person, and it was just like 2 nights or something. But I don't. I'm going back to California, which is very funny because it just came up. It's a work trip, but we were just there. We're going to be, Phil and
Oh
I
my
are
God, of
going on a work trip
course.
and we're going to be in the exact same places we just were at that we chose to be at. So it's very funny. I
Wow.
guess we're going to the same exact places. Monterey, we're going to San Francisco, just the same.
Ah,
A couple of new places, but it's kind of funny. So I never know. But if I go for work, I will definitely let you know.
yes,
Skylar,
please do.
thank you so much for taking the time out to chat with me, and please tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, thank you. I knew that I was going to love the conversation. So, I'm not surprised. Um, best place is probably my website, which is my name, skylarlibertyrose.com. And there's links on there to my private coaching, my audio courses, my audio course, my program, my membership club. And I've just shifted my newsletter from MailChimp to Substack. So I'll be sending out something from there every 2 weeks, and you can do that as a free version or a paid version. But yeah, everything is on my website for people to take a look at.
Oh my goodness, thank you. I adore you. I love your hair. I love your
Oh,
accent. I love
thank
you as a
you.
person.
Oh,
And can't wait to catch up again soon.
thank you, Lorraine. It's been such a delight to talk to you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.